This is a Wild Games Production podcast.
Welcome to the D&D world.
Meet you by the art room door, in a circle on the hallway floor. I made up a new map last night. It's got a dragon and a wizard fight.
So I've been working on my X2 game for the community game, but man, I haven't run a module in a really long time. I really love the absence of detail. Just the little bits that you have to fill in. I'm like just embellishing every single different encounter box, and it's just super great.
That's what I want from a module. I want the module to give me the boring stuff so I can do the fun stuff.
Yeah, like I super enjoy having to make it your own.
That's the whole, my perspective always been, that's the whole point behind a module. It's just make life for the DM easier.
Right. Exactly.
The whole concept to me was you buy this module, you read it, and then you go through and with a legal pad and just start going at it. And,
that's basically what I'm doing. I was going to do it literally on a pad of paper, but
yeah.
I'm actually doing it because it's a PDF version. But yeah, I even wrote down all of the Amber family members on a notepad, like not like a 3-ring binder, a pad of paper. So this isn't the module. Oh, I guess it kind of is, though. Anyways. It is sometimes the module podcast, but right now this is the Save or Die podcast, a podcast about classical Dungeons and Dragons. I'm one of your hosts, Crispy, a Magan Demos who has been set up in a boxing ring and will act as a prize fighter in the first encounter.
I am another one of your hosts, Carl, and today I am a level 1 cleric and I don't even have a healing spell.
Aw, so sad. I am Courtney. I am a level 4 wizard with all my spells.
And joining us today is Bill Barsh.
Yeah, Bill Barsh, level 1 thief who can't do anything particularly well.
You can climb sheer surfaces.
Yeah, you can climb real good.
Let's give credit where credit is due. All right, and today on the show, we're going to be doing a kind of a more laid back, almost interview-like format, and we're going to be talking about, is it BX Remastered?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
BX Remastered. It's actually my son came out with that title. It's actually, I think, pretty good.
All right, which is a Kickstarter that's going on through Pacesetter Games right now, which is a remaster of the basic expert rules, and as I understand it, you add a little bit more to it. And then also you're cleaning it up. You're kind of giving it, a more modern treatment, and still staying true, not doing a retro clone.
People have gone back and forth, on Facebook when we post up there. Well, yeah, you are doing a retro clone, or yeah, you're not. In my definition of a retro clone is kind of a complete rewrite of the rules, but keeping it the same game, generally speaking. I guess Labyrinth Lord, to me is a great example of a retro clone for the old basic D&D game. We're really not doing that. We're trying to basically create books that mirror the original BX, except we're putting them in a player's guide and DM's guide format.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that said, we are adding material to it. It's been almost 40 years since those books came out. We've got whole new generations of players that did not play it back 40 years ago. So, we want
one of those people
that will attract them, to play the game in the future. So we're adding some character classes. It's still class is race. I mean, race is class. We're still keeping that the same. We're just, trying to add it up a few things to give it some new life, but yet we really, really want to keep the simplicity and elegance of BX.
That sounds awesome. For me, I actually agree with you on the retro clone thing. I do want to touch on that. BX Essentials is kind of similar to what you guys are doing, where it's just the BX rules.
And it's a funny thing, and again, I don't want to get off on the tangent. when we came up with this idea, we were actually going to do it. We run a lot of events and conventions and tournaments and that kind of thing. We have a lot of BX modules from way back in the day that we put out. So our idea in doing this was, we noticed people either can't get the old books or they're just falling apart. So we said, let's just kind of redo them. And we weren't even going to do this as a Kickstarter. This wasn't our plan at all. We were just going to just print some books up, bring them to conventions, pass them out here and there. It wasn't our intention. But what happened is we do have a Kickstarter schedule for the year. The one we wanted to do isn't where we want it to be. It just wasn't ready. And we're like, well, we need to, to keep our schedule consistent, we need to put something out. Hey, we got these BX books. Everything's done. I mean, they're 90% done. We got a little bit more layout to do, cleaning them up, and we got a couple stretch goals to add character classes, that kind of thing. But they're done. And we're like, what the heck? Let's just throw this up and see what happens. And we are so excited that there was so much excitement about these. And honestly, I know I've been in the OSR world a long time. I am aware of a lot of OSR rules, games, products. To be honest with you, I had never heard of BX Essentials. And knowing now that they're out there and they're doing what they're doing, I'm not so sure we would have gone down this road, but we did.
I think they're still fairly similar, just because BX Essentials, they're not really, like, Gavin Norman is not adding anything to BX with the core book line, whereas you guys are wanting to expand a little bit on the rules. And I actually do have some questions about that, because I saw some of the stuff with your stretch goals for what's being added. But can you give us a little bit of detail, a sort of like, what is being added, what people can look forward to?
So what's new with BX Remastered? So we did add a bunch of character classes, which I know, in this internet world, there are new classes anyway, but they weren't in that basic and expert set. So we added new classes that aren't necessarily new. We put a paladin and a ranger. We added a half elf, a gnome. We just did a stretch goal for a monk, and that hit, so he's in. I think we just put the update on that today, kind of a sample page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that today.
Can you tell us a little bit about one of those classes, whichever one you prefer, just like your approach to that class?
I have a specific one I want to add about.
I wasn't going to put him on a spot for a specific one, but go ahead.
No, go for it.
You mentioned gnome, so I don't know if you listen to the show. I have a very intense hatred of gnomes, but are you doing gnomes races class?
They're just a race and race class. So the gnome basically is he's basically a fighter illusionist. Okay. So,
that's what I would have done.
Yeah,
that's what I would have done.
I was hoping you would say it would be a race as class, and that, like, I really like where this is going.
Yeah, he's the alpha of the short world. So, a little bit of a fighter. He's not going to fight as good as a necessarily an elf or a fighter will, but he can. He's going to be better than for a thief, for example. But he's going to have basically illusionist spells also. So we kind of wanted to make a gnome, a little bit more mystical. A little bit, probably a lesser played class when it comes down to it, but that should be for a reason. They should be more rare as player characters, and just give them a little bit oddball spells. So it's not going to be a case where it's he's got just Phantasmal Force, the magic user version of Phantasmal Force. Well, we've actually made some adjustments for all those kind of like spells. We did actually for all the spellcasters, by the way. Like a cleric's light spell is a little bit different than a magic user's light spell. So basically there's your gnome is fighter illusionist. He can fight pretty well and cast these really cool illusionist spells, which gives us an opportunity to create, because there are a lot of those kind of spells in the BX game to begin with. So spells is a big part of this our player. We added spells for all the classes, not just the ones.
To pull off of that question a little bit, how did you handle that for elves?
So we really didn't mess with the elves very much at all. They're pretty much going to be exactly where they are in BX now. So their spell list is actually is exactly the same as Magic User spell list.
Got it.
One of them we did not mess with. So
no, that I understand the reasoning behind that. If you're porting over from your existent campaign in a basic setting, that is what the elf is. So yeah, I completely understand why you would do that.
Part of the idea, or the whole idea behind this thing, and again, we didn't realize somebody else had kind of already done this in a way, was we really wanted to have 2 books. So we want to be able to have the players have a book on the table for all their stuff, and the DM have his book. And if you want multiple players guides, you can have multiple players guides later out there, instead of sorting through 2 different books to try and find a rule, here, there, or whatever. So that was kind of the whole premise behind that. And we wanted to make sure that if you had your expert set rules on the table, it works with our books and vice versa. So elf is still the elf. I mean, we haven't really changed anything. We might have, you're putting me on the spot because I can't remember all these things in detail. We did adjust, maybe all the races might have another ability or 2, like smaller or lesser things that may not have been included originally. Just small tweaks, but nothing huge. But yeah, the elf is going to cast spells just like a magic user, and he uses the same spell list.
Are you guys keeping the 14 level cap, or are you expanding?
We expanded it a little bit. Some of the classes go all the way to 18th, but they all don't. I think a dwarf is still. I think we keep him down at 14, 15, or 16 off the top of my head. Same with the halfling. He's not going to go as high. We kind of, there's that old. You're going to see some AD&D overtures in some of our stuff, and it's because my huge background is first edition AD&D. So you're going to see a little bit of that kind of drift in here, where the humans can generally go to higher level than most of the other races, but not always. That's not always the case.
Well, that's the way it is in BX as well. BX,
right.
The humans do.
Yeah, the humans can go a little higher, but we basically capped everything at 18.
And it's sort of my understanding with first edition. The way I view it is a lot of the archetypes that are presented in classic D&D, especially BX and BECME, are sort of like they really emulate what first edition does with its multi-classing. So, you have your fighter magic user elves, you have your, fighter thief halflings. I don't think it's that bleed over. It sort of seems like a natural extension.
With D&D as a whole, my whole perspective, this game always tends to break down at higher levels anyway, so we didn't want to get too crazy with it.
That's every edition of D&D.
Every edition of D&D, characters get to a certain level, the whole game starts breaking down and things start getting really wonky. There can be a lot of fun involved there, but it's not traditionally where I like to go. So we kind of still capped them out at like I said, it's generally between 15th and 18th. Everyone can float around there somewhere, which to me is plenty high to go. And you know what? You can always extrapolate it higher. The tables are pretty simple. Most of these classes and races are just basically doubling experience or whatever it is. Their formula is the same once they hit like 9th, 10th, 11th level. They need 200,000 per level to go up a level, and it pretty much stays the same all the way up. So people want to run it, they can certainly do it. And we wanted to keep all options on the table, but we also have to cap everything somewhere.
For the fighter, because I know you mentioned that some classes get extra abilities, does the fighter get multiple attacks at those higher levels?
Yes, and there's a couple other things we're doing with him too that I don't want to give away yet. I kind of things we do would definitely want to leave as a surprise when people get the book. The fighter is and will always be the core character in any D&D game. Sometimes they can be a little bland, right? So we wanted to jazz them up a little bit, but without affecting anything, especially at the lower levels. But yes, he will get multiple attacks at higher levels. And we got a couple of little tweaks in there for, like I said, that they can do it at higher levels also. And everything we do, we make sure we explain in these books is optional. If it doesn't show up in BX, you don't have to use it, even if we have it in here. It's like an optional ability. I think people will like it. And again, the game has changed in 40 years. We want to, as much as I'm an old school guy. I've been playing since 1977. So, I know what the game was like way back, and I have that connection to it. But I also realize that it's 2019, and we've got people playing D&D for the first time ever in the last couple of years because of the explosion of 5th edition. We shouldn't not want those people to migrate into games like BX because it's got such an old feeling. They might be they might be daunted by saying, well, that game's it's too old, it's too straightforward. We want to give a little bit of that flexibility in BX and make it, for lack of a better term, a little more sexy than it used to be today.
Well, and they just may not be able to even find it or realize it existed.
I got my copies of the original BX books that I didn't have to print out myself as a gift from Carl. So
yeah, because they can't find them because I have all of them. I bought all the eBay copies. There's no more. So anyway, I just want to do a call out from what you're saying. Lao Lu, are you listening? This is what you're looking for. He emailed us about fighters in BX and about missing some of these additional options you're talking about. So that sounds like that's going to be really for him if he's listening.
We pretty much did that for every class. We gave him a little more options and a little more stuff without getting into, this isn't second edition AD&D we're talking about. We're not there, but a few more elements to the game that a lot of people play with it anyway, honestly. So just giving people the option to do so.
So Bill, talking about new and different options. Dwarves are my favorite. Is there anything new and different that I can look forward to for my BFFs, the dwarves?
You know what we did, and you're gonna have to. I'll get back to you on that one because off the top of my head, I don't remember what we did with them, but we did do something. Right now, my head is in monk world because I've spent the last 2 days on this.
I feel bad because we're just like, Bill, give us the secrets.
Tell us everything.
Yeah, no, we did do some stuff with dwarves. It was again, it's along the same lines with the fighters. So
that makes sense. Yeah,
we did something with a multiple attack with him at higher levels also. We try to do something for everybody, without getting carried away. Although one of the new characters we created was a necromancer class, and we probably got carried away with that thing, but it is what it is.
Well, there's not really a good necromancer type character in BX, or I guess even really old school D&D.
The trick with him was that, a necromancer, you think necromancer and you just think villain off the top of your head, right? So we wanted to make this necromancer an actual player character who was a good guy. So we have to tailor that necromancer thing and walk that line where you can have a cleric and a necromancer in the same party and get along.
I have one more question.
Yeah,
I'm saving this one because it's the most aggressive question, and I want to apologize in advance. I don't mean this as any kind of offense, but so Bill, why would I choose this over, say, Labyrinth Lord Advanced?
Okay, so you wouldn't. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Again, when we launched this Kickstarter, we weren't out here to change hearts and minds. That was not what we're looking to do. We weren't looking to create a game system to replace everybody else's game system they're already using. This honestly was a project designed to augment. If you're already playing BX, you should keep playing BX. But here are some books that are going to let you do it easier. Okay, your players are going to have a comprehensive guide. Everything is in that book for the player. His designing his character, all his stat charts. We try to make the charts easier to use. All the spells are in that book. You don't have to go through different books. So we're not, again, we don't want to create a new game for people to play. That really wasn't the intent of this. The intent was, if you're playing BX now, here's something to make your game better.
Okay.
So we don't want you to stop playing Labyrinth Lord to play quote unquote Pacesetter's BX, because honestly, it's not Pacesetter's BX. This is still the BX you played. Like I said, people played 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So now, can you play it without the old rulebooks? Of course you can. And that option is there. But we really didn't want this to be a new game system unto itself and step on anybody else's toes. Like I said, I've been around the OSR a long time. The last thing I ever want to do is do something like that. And it's not our intent, without sounding defensive either. But on the other hand, you should buy it because it's going to be really cool.
Well, even just the way you're putting it, like that kind of reframes it for me, because I've got the whole set of BX Essentials. I've got 3 copies of BX, but having one player book would even, or 3 or 4 copies would be nice to have at my table, so they can just have them as reference guides.
And we did that as pledge levels too, because we kind of thought that way a little bit when we did it. Is we have I think there's one pledge level. I don't know, it's about $100, but basically you get like 6 or 7 books. The DM gets a book and he gets like 5 or 6 copies of the player's handbook, pass out to all, take home with them.
Yeah, the cleric level. I'm looking at that right now.
Okay, yeah, there you go. And the other thing we did too, it's not just rule books. We've been producing adventure supplements and modules for 11 years now. I mean, right now you get a box, which is sweet, and then it's got obviously the player's guide, DM guide. And right now, it's got 3 full print modules in it on top of all that.
See, on the Kickstarter, I'm actually... This was my next talking point I wanted to get off of. Yeah. To get, like, the big question that I had. And then I wanted to jump into this. Because I see the Haunted Tower and then Grave of the Green Flame. But I don't see the third module. So 3 whole modules are coming. Is that... these are stretch goals, right?
They were, but we've already met them. So all 3 of those print modules come in the box set. And
wow, that's a great deal.
It is a great deal. And look, like I said, when we launched this Kickstarter was, let's have some fun with this and see where it goes and get something out there for people. This was never intended to be one of these $100,000 Kickstarters, and it won't be, obviously. But for us, it's not about the money. It's actually backers. We want to get this out to as many people as we can, and that's why I try to set some pretty I think reasonable basic pledge levels. I mean, you can get the PDFs for $15. It gives you 2 books and a module for $15 in PDF form. I mean, I don't think you get it much cheaper than that. So I mean, it did well, and it's continuing to do well, and we're really happy about it. And the nice thing about it, like I said, this thing is done, and we're excited to get it done because we want to get it in people's hands. And the cool thing about this project is it's going to be in people's hands like lightning.
Any plans for this once it's all funded to be sold at retail?
It will be, yeah. We definitely will have it in. The box set will be available, and then the 2 in the player's guide and DM's guide will be available individually. They'll be available, but yeah, as far as aftermarket, in fact, we're planning on having these in Orthex. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fast. That is a big turn. That's like a super quick turnaround.
And I wouldn't even think about saying that publicly if I knew we couldn't get it done. And I hope we get it done because like I said, these books essentially are done. That's where we're at with it. We did not want to overpromise and deliver. That's not going to happen here.
So, Bill, I have a non-aggressive question since Crispy's asking all the aggressive questions. Can you talk about the artwork a little bit?
Sure. So we've got a couple of artists that we're using. One is, 1, 2, 3 artists we're using. So a couple of them we've been using for years. His name's Matt Costanzo. He's done a ton of work for us. He's done some covers for us, and nobody's going to know him because the only person he illustrates for is us. And but he does a lot of cool interior stuff, a lot of our black and whites. He doesn't do a lot of color for us, but he does a cover from time to time. So I like his style. It's definitely old school. He captures it pretty cool, I think. He's pretty unique. So he did, the characters are kind of split between him and another one of our artists, Al Cook. Again, who's a guy who I don't know if he's ever done anything for anybody else but us, but we've been using both these guys for 7, 8 years now. So they've been with us and we're comfortable and they know what we're looking for, and you're going to get a lot of art in these books. Which everybody likes art. And then I don't know if you're familiar with Lloyd Metcalf. His daughter Raven is also an illustrator, and we used her. She actually did the covers for both the books. And
so is the interior black and white?
Yes. This is not a modern color book. It is definitely covers are 4-color and interior is all black and white.
That is so strongly my preference. I can't even tell you how excited I am to hear that.
I'm really happy that it's gonna be. I hate glossy paper. It's so hard to read.
So I have a question that is it's not a big deal to me, but I know it's a big deal to a lot of people. Is this ascending or descending armor class?
Oh no, this is old school. This is descending armor class. So you got armor class 10, armor class 9, you're gonna get nailed. You got armor class 2, it's a lot harder. No, we did not take the swords and wizardry route on this. So we kept and there's nothing wrong with that. I love swords and wizardry. But we didn't want to go that way. No,
yeah, it's a non-issue for me, but I know a lot of people draw lines in the sand over that one.
They do, and that is one of the modern mechanics kept out of it.
I mean, I like descending armor class. It's just none of my friends, I guess, know how to subtract, or look at a matrix on their sheet. So I don't know.
This has been really revelating to me because I was, admittedly, you're right here, so this is a little awkward to say, but I was pretty lukewarm to the idea. I mean, I thought I was going to check it out at some point, but I was like, I don't have to back this. Yeah.
I was also super lukewarm. I was like, but now that you're telling me this stuff, I was like, yeah, I could.
Yeah, this sounds way more up my alley than I thought it was going to be. I'm very excited to take a look.
Yeah, and a lot of that is on us because honestly, when we launched this, we were well, my son Ben, who's actually running most of this. I'm kind of on the back end of this. He's kind of handling the whole thing. He's actually I'm in Michigan. He's down in Florida. He's doing the Disney College program right now. But
that's a great internship.
Oh, it's
I have friends who did that in college. Yeah.
Yeah, he's absolutely loving it, but it's cool because it gives them also lots of time to do stuff like this. Well, the issue was GaryCon was creeping up on us, and this launch window that we had was right before GaryCon. So, I'm trying to get ready to mobilize to go there, and he's got to fly up. So when we launched this thing, we probably did not do the best job in the world of describing exactly what this thing was and what we were trying to do. So we've tried to do that through updates and FAQs and that kind of thing. Because admittedly, it may not have been as clear as we intended, certainly. And I'm really appreciative you guys give me the opportunity to come on here and do that, because I think you certainly have. I mean, you brought stuff out that I didn't even think of.
There are 12 days to go on the Kickstarter. We will link to the Kickstarter in the show notes, and that's at time of recording. I'll try to edit this and get the turnaround as quick as possible and get it out there for our listeners.
It's all good. Like I said, I appreciate you having me on here, and we got a chance to talk about it, because for me, it's whether anyone backs this or not, try BX if you haven't played it in a while. It's just
absolutely.
The TSR modules you're talking about, X2 Castle Amber, the whole B series, not the whole B series, most of the B series and a lot of the X series, those are amazing old TSR modules. And if you never got a chance to play them, I mean, get your hands on some of them. I mean, I tell people till I'm blue in the face, if you've never played X4 and X5, you need to get your hands on those modules. They're just awesome. Forget the fact that they're basic expert. They are those two modules, in my opinion, are two of the most well-designed modules ever written as far as playability. And that's what you get with BX. And, that was the inspiration behind doing this whole project. So whether you back us or not, they're great. But get out there and play BX. And, if it's somebody else's version of BX, do that too, because it's all good.
You're tugging on my geek heartstrings.
I was gonna say, the goal of making BX seem a little sexier so that more modern people will come play it. I totally get behind that. It's real hard for me to find people in person.
And again, that comes a lot from, except for my son Ben, who's he's 20, he's about to be 21, but he's that modern age gamer, right? I mean, he fits that demographic. So that's kind of why, like I said, a lot of this project is his massaging and his kind of putting it together and saying here's where it needs to go, and him kind of running it. Because it gives he's got that perspective.
I was actually familiar with Ben before this, because I think he and I are in a couple of the same Facebook groups, and then also I've seen just trolling for BX related stuff on YouTube. I've found some videos that he's done.
Yeah, he does a lot of stuff on YouTube. In fact, he does he does a lot of Disney stuff with YouTube, but he does a lot of D&D stuff on YouTube. Like bringing people into 5e is one of his big. and he does also. He is like for Frog God Games. He's their internet guru. So he does their.
I think that might have been what it was. Maybe for something with swords and wizardry.
Yes, he does. He does all the Frog God Game stuff. So like at GaryCon recently, Bill Webb ran an adventure, and Joe Manganiello was playing in it, and I think a couple other celebrities and that kind of thing. So Ben was the videographer and interviewer, and he did all that kind of stuff for that. So that's kind
really cool. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, we can link those in the show notes as well. His Pacesetter.
I'm a big fan of Joe Mania.
Oh, Joe Mania is nuts. And then the Critical Role guys were the two, and I'm drawing a blank right. Oh, Mercer, Matt. It was a funny thing was he was actually walking through the dealer's hall, and he came over to our event. He was walking by our vendor space. And there's people just following this guy. I mean, he's the cult following of this guy is amazing. And it's very cool because again, he brings so many more people into the game. He's just a great ambassador for it. Well, the way our booth kind of laid out is you can walk right in. Okay, so he kind of slipped in and he got stuck in there signing autographs for about an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, and it wouldn't end. And they kept apologizing. I'm like, no, you stay here as long as you want. You guys are fantastic ambassadors to the game. You sit here and sign autographs. I mean, who cares? We won't sell a couple of books because you're here. I really don't care. But,
or maybe you'll sell more books because they're there, Waiting in line to get an autograph, you start looking at the merchandise.
Sounds like a good time to be selling small pieces of paper and pen.
Carl,
get your autograph materials.
I should have been thinking, but it was really cool. Like I said, Ben got to. I think he did a little interview with him too. I mean, Ben, that's his world too, world and all that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you've seen him on that. But yeah, they just did some big Frog God thing with Joe Manganiello playing and all that kind of stuff. And
I saw that. That was a cool video.
Guys, it was awesome, and thanks again. And we will talk soon. And if not, I'm assuming some of you guys can be down in Texas or no?
Yes, Carl and I will be.
Awesome.
I can't, but I'll be in Arkansas for the next convention.
Me and Courtney run Arkansas RPG Con,
right.
So if you're ever in the area, come on.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right,
Take care.
All right, bye now.
And we just want to thank Bill Barsh again for being on the show and talking about his project. I think we'll jump back to something we normally do at the beginning of the show and touch up on a little bit of what we've been doing in gaming lately. So I'm going to start with Courtney. What have you been doing lately?
Yes, we played in a game with some friends of ours. It's been an ongoing game, not necessarily a regularly scheduled game because of life. But the last time we gamed, we were trying to seek out an NPC that's been a reoccurring NPC, and her name is Tammy, and Tammy has some special taffy that has special powers, and so we were trying to find Tammy with the taffy and and go on our next adventure from there. Carl might can elaborate a little bit more if he wants on where that was going, since he's the DM of that game and I have a poor memory.
Well, so Tammy had been kidnapped by Ox, the head of the Thieves Guild, who was also allegedly her father, but turned out not to be her father. So they were trying to get Tammy back to her homeland, where they found out that she was actually from a bordering kingdom called the Barony of Mord. And they stopped on the way at Rich the Lich. Oh, Rich the Lich.
My God.
My favorite Rich the Lich.
Is this the one with his grandson, Little
Richard?
Little Richard, yeah. Little Richard's fine.
Wow. That's a callback to like the first episode we did together.
Not quite, but yeah, a while ago. Yeah, it's the same campaign. So they stopped back at Rich the Lich, and he did weird, creepy stuff. And because he's a lich, he's still a lich. It turns out he's still weird and creepy.
Oh. You would think he would get better by now, but I guess not.
We had that game, and we also I have been continuing with my homeschool gaming group that has morphed into an RPG club more than it has a board game hour, which is absolutely fine by me. I've decided to dub them the homeschool murder hobos, because these 9-year-old children were sitting there. They had just set off a trap because they were like, we can just set this trap off and not have to worry about it. So they set off a trap. It made a huge noise because it was a falling rock trap. So these creatures were running up from the corner, and they could hear the creatures coming, but they didn't know what they were. And so they decided to set a trap, and they were arguing with each other because some had spikes and hammers and some had rope, and they were like, trip wire, or should we set the spikes on the floor or whatever. And this 9-year-old girl, this cute little 9-year-old girl said, why not both? Why not trip line them onto the spikes? I was like, you kids are scary.
Jesus.
But that's what they did, and it worked a treat. It worked like a charm. I made some dice rolls, and I was like, yeah, they don't see that. Let's see if they see the other thing. No, they don't see that. Oh, okay, well.
And that's the freedom of being in homeschool, because if you had a gaming club called the Public School Murder Hobos, those kids would be expelled.
Yeah.
As for me, I got to a point where I could rejoin into my play-by-post OD&D game, so I'm super excited about that. Again, it's really slow moving, so not a lot's happened. We're on a ship. We're about to go fight the people who we were fighting previously, but now I have a weapon, so I'm pretty excited about that. But I've also been working on some pre-gens and also flushing out an X2 game that I'm going to run as a community game like Carl did for B2 last month. And that's going to be next Thursday. So this is Thursday the 21st when we're recording this. This will be Thursday the 28th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's GMT -8 in our Discord channel. And it's drop in, drop out. You can come in. I've got pre-gens already made for you, so you don't have to worry about bringing a character. We've got a dice rolling bot, so you don't have to worry about bringing dice. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm having a great time really sussing out and really sort of fleshing out the module. So I'm super excited. I ran X2 10 years ago, and I'm really taking my time with it this time to sort of make it my own.
Yeah, and I will be playing in that game, so that will be exciting for me, because I've never seen Crispy DM. I'll get to be the terrible judgmental player that I am and measure his DM skill, because that's unfortunately what I do when I play games. So
I do the same thing.
Yeah, it's hard not to. Once you've peeked behind that curtain, it's hard not to just think about it from that perspective.
I was like almost exclusively the DM for like 7 years,
right?
And it's my favorite role, so it's hard to kind of break out of that DM mindset.
Well, I'm always looking. I mean, I think you can't be a good DM unless you play every once in a while. So I always want to play every opportunity. I'll play and pick up ideas, and I learn lots of skills from playing that I go, oh, that's a cool way to do that. That's a good idea. I'll start thinking of it that way.
Crispy, I am not a judgmental player, so I will be able to hopefully jump in, possibly jump out and back in, depending on life things that evening for the game, and I won't judge you.
Thanks, Courtney. I appreciate that.
And let's close out the show with an email. And we want to read one of our emails that we've received. And this one is from JV West, longtime Sod listener. So thank you so much for the email, JV West. I'm going to read that now. It says, Sod Masters. Nice change up to the show's cast. Hearty welcome to PC Courtney.
Hurrah!
At the beginning of episode 149, DM Crispy said a thing, and it resonated strongly in my D&D soul. It was the bit about having players create 4 different versions of their characters to represent the various stages of pulp-style adventurers. I love that idea. For me, it touches on a problematic aspect of one of D&D's most basic tropes, the character level. It seems like an interesting idea to run D&D without levels at all. If you were to dismiss levels in your D&D game, how would you do it? Why would you do it? To address the why question for me, it would be to allow a varied group of rotating players in an ongoing game. Without levels, PCs would be closer in power to one another. Perhaps to offset the ditching of levels, you could implement a loosey-goosey system of random perks that you'd acquire after each adventure, or something like that. I think 5e does a decent job of addressing this with the bounded accuracy concept so that a level 3 doesn't feel quite so outclassed by a level 9 companion. What are your thoughts, O makers of the save, O myrmidons of magic, O scions of sorcery? Thank you, Jay.
I definitely agree, and that was my problem. So the experience points are sort of the problem that idea runs into, because the game is about getting experience and getting stronger. So if you have this campaign where you have set strength, 4 sets of determined strength, it sort of just becomes a storytelling game, which I don't think D&D is that great at. I feel like it's something you can do with it, but D&D is sort of like the jack of all trades, master of none with a lot of these things that become their own sort of role-playing game genre. So my idea would be to keep strength equal, and this is what I did when I made my pre-gens, was to go, here's your character at, I would say, 3,000 XP. Here's your character at 20,000 XP. Here's your character at 50,000 XP. Here's your character at, whatever higher level. So you can kind of get a feel. So, that ends up being like 3,000 XP. You've got some level 1s and some level 2s, maybe a level 3, but I don't think so. And then at the next tier at like 20,000, you're roughly about level 5, and then going up and up, so you would be comparable in power, but you wouldn't
interject, Crispy, sorry. And just because I'm who I am. I'm sorry. 3,000 XP.
You interrupt me, Carl.
3,000 XP. You would have level 3 thieves and clerics.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I thought so, but I started second guessing myself.
No, and that's the point of that split and the reason why I think 3,000 is such a good number to do is because it gives you a point where everybody's still pretty far away from their next level, but it gives you that power gradient that you see in classic D&D, where you have the cleric and the thief level a little bit faster than everybody else, and your elf is still trailing behind at level 1 at 3,000 XP. So it gives you that idea of like, this is part of the structure of the game. Sorry.
Yeah. And then, and the way you sort of, between adventures, because you can run multiple adventures tiers.
Right. Just
like a pulp adventure, and you would just do the same thing that Fritz Leiber did to Flathard and the Grey Mouser, or that Howard did to Conan, where you may on one adventure get a bunch of money, but by the next adventure you've either drank it and like caroused it all away, or it was stolen from you by either happenstance or intent. And as for what he had suggested, which was giving people a grab bag of abilities, I am really resistant to do that in a BX game.
Well, I think he's kind of asking a different question than how you're going to handle it in your different levels of adventuring life game. I think what he's asking is, if you didn't like levels, how would you implement the removal of them?
Oh, okay. I have then sort of still the same answer, but with a different bent. As some people may know, if they've listened to the show for a long time or have been involved in the community, at a certain point, I was like the Pathfinder kid. I love Pathfinder. I was always talking about Pathfinder and how I was finding all those paths. Then at a certain point, I hate Pathfinder. It's my least favorite version of D&D, just 3.5 in general. I got really burnt out on it because it was all I was running, and it's a lot. I had like 2 games going at once. It was weekly, and it was too much. And they were getting up to like 9th level. There is a variant for So you can really do this very easily with 3.5. There's a variant rule set called E6, which is it means either Epic 6 or Effective 6, where characters level normally till they hit 6th level, and then after that they stop. And then after every like 150,000 or 125,000 experience points, they just get a new feat. So you can have this 6th level character who has gained, 1 million extra experience points, and now they just have a ton of extra feats and a ton of extra abilities. So that's how I would do that if I was going to throw out levels. I would like probably play an E6, 3.5, or Pathfinder game. I think you could do the same thing with 5th edition, but I don't know if it works well in the classic D&D scope. That would be my answer to that. I would just do something akin to that.
So, Courtney, do you have a response for the question? If you were to dismiss levels in your D&D games, how would you do it, and why would you do it?
I guess thinking about it from like a dwarf's point of view, they would just naturally. I mean, they would get stronger because of and more, I guess, tank-like by their different armor and weapons that they find. So they would just naturally level up that way. I think where you kind of run into how do I level up without leveling up is with your characters that gain spells. Now you have 3 or now you have 4, and how do you implement that? But maybe it's more so they find a scroll and then they get a new spell, or they find a book and then they get a new spell. And so it's not necessarily all of a sudden you obtain this many experience points. You can still have your magic users acquire more spells and learn new spells without it being because they obtained a certain number of points.
Yeah, I mean, what you were saying about the dwarf too, you get magic armor, you get magic weapons. These things make you more powerful.
Right, so they're in a sense leveling up that way by their different types of armor, their different types of...
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Equipment is a huge, magic items and equipment is a huge power adjuster.
That is a really good idea. Or even just like letting characters create their own special things. But like, Conan has an Atlantean sword, and it's like the dopest sword. Same with Aragorn. He's also got an Atlantean sword. It's
Apparently the Atlantean sword is the thing to get.
Or, like Elric also gets an Atlantean sword.
All swords are Atlantean on a long enough time.
All really cool, like super sweet, like Luke Skywalker. He's got an Atlantean lightsaber.
Oh man. Here's how I would do it. I would not. No, I mean, I think the level system in D&D is intrinsic to the game, because I think the game of D&D is about becoming this ridiculously powerful person. It is the hero's journey where you start off on this adventure and it fundamentally changes you. I think that's a big component of the game. If you wanted to remove it, the leveling part, without removing that hero's journey, I think Courtney's idea is fantastic, where you do it through magic items. I think one thing you could consider is maybe reducing the amount of damage done by some of the bigger creatures and just limiting hit point acquisition. The big difference between a level 9 fighter and a level 1 fighter is hit points. That's the biggest adjustment you're going to see between those power levels. And hit points is kind of this fundamental weird thing in the game where you're like, I'm not threatened by a goblin with a sword because I have so many hit points, and that doesn't really make sense. A goblin with a sword should still be a dangerous thing. So if you wanted to do that, I would keep all the powers the same, especially in classic D&D where the powers really aren't that out there. But just curtail hit points a little bit. And we got another email from Leroy. Thank you so much for the email, Leroy. I'll read that now. It was great listening to you guys role-playing at the end of your show. Would you guys ever take a stab at an OD&D example? something that describes the mechanics, like the man versus man combat or chainmail combat. I would even love to hear an example of Holmes combat using the dexterity initiative. I would love to know if you have any house rules about having gnomes as a player race in BX. And if you do, what are they?
We
Leroy.
kill gnomes.
Well, for that last point, I would use Pacesetter Games Basic and Expert Remastered.
Yeah, I think
for
that's
the
the best. I think that's exactly. I mean, that's on. I've tweaked with this idea a little bit of like kind of adding more classes to BX, and I always end up kind of abandoning it. But that's what I would do. That's how I would handle gnomes. Is I'd want them to be illusionist fighters the same way that elves are fighter magic. Now, as far as the first question, the actual play segment will absolutely be slightly geared towards what we talked about during the episode. It's going to be the same characters. It's always going to have kind of a BX core to it. But if we were, say, talking heavily about Holmes Basic, or if we were going to talk heavily about original Dungeons and Dragons, I would want to pull some of that into the actual play segment, because it's always going to kind of hark back to what the core of the show was about before it.
And I think that'll be our show for this episode. This episode 151, like everyone's favorite rum. I'm doing that rhyming thing again. I'm stop that. But thanks for listening. You can always find us on our Facebook page. You can also find us at saveordie.info, our website. You can also check us out on our Discord. There will be a link to that in the show notes. That is also where I'm going to be running this community game. So if you want to drop in, come play for a couple hours. Probably going to run from 6 to about 11 my time. Still get solid 5 hours. So there should be plenty of opportunity. I know we've got I've got quite a bit of response for people who are interested, so I'm super excited for that. And then you can also add us on Twitter, and I think that's all of the places we are.
Yes, there is an OSR Podcast MeWe group that there is some posting on. I'm not super active on MeWe, but that does exist.
I've not been on MeWe in months, so feel bad about that, but I guess I should pop in there. So that's our show. Again, I've been one of your hosts, Crispy, a Magan prize fighting boxer who is in the service of a mad French mage.
And I have been another one of your hosts, Carl, and I just made it to level 2, and I got my 1 spill. I chose light.
And I'm your host, Courtney. I am a level 4 wizard, and I just put myself to sleep with my own sleep spell. Sad.
And that'll be our show for this week. Thanks again for listening. And be sure to stay tuned after these messages for our actual play segment.
Peace out, Cub Scout.
Awesome.
Are you enjoying the show you're listening to right now? Great! Why not head over to patreon.com/WGP and support that show for as little as $1 a month. $1 a month goes a long way to helping support the network of Wild Games Productions. Again, that's patreon.com/WGP. Thank you.
Leothward and Hilda have left Rockholm, and they have begun traveling down into the realms of men, where there is adventure to be found, and they have found themselves in a dungeon. The first dungeon that they have experienced together, they are in a room in which they have just finished a battle. They are surrounded by the slain bodies of orcs and goblins. The room has a door that heads east and out of the dungeon. They have traveled through this dungeon to the other side of the mountain range that it was under. The room is littered with debris, trash, garbage, and some barrels, some containers that have yet to be explored. They are cleaning up after the battle.
Can I tell what's in the barrels? Like, by looking at them, do I recognize the barrels?
They have markings on them, probably common speak. I don't know what the Mockstara word for it is. Is it Karamikan? I don't know. It's Karamikan. In Mockstar, it's Karamikan. I don't know what it is in Mistar, but in Mockstar, it's got some Karamikan writing on it. And they were at one time pickle barrels, but you do not believe there to be pickles in them currently.
Do you think there's any L in these barrels?
Well, you're certainly welcome to look for yourself.
So I walk over towards the barrels. Do I smell anything?
Yes, there is a rancid smell coming from the barrels. The crates that are further to the corner of the room do not have as strong an odor. So there is something in this barrel these barrels that does not smell quite right.
Whew, man, do you smell that?
Oh, you mean that wasn't you this whole time? I'm gonna go over to the opening to the east. And is it a door or is it a hallway?
It is a door.
It is a door.
Large wooden door, reinforced and closed.
I'm gonna listen at the door.
Okay, can you give me a die roll?
I got a 2.
Okay. Listening at the door, you hear from the other side the sounds of, and if you weren't an elf, you probably wouldn't be able to pick on this, but there is clearly water on the other side of this door. Not like standing water, it's not like there's flooding, but you can hear just the sounds of a cave with water in it, the different echoes and the way it fills the room differently. You can tell there's water on the other side of this.
I'm gonna open the door. Cautiously. I'm going to get to the other side where the handle is.
Okay.
And sort of brace myself against the wall and jimmy the handle and swing it open.
You push the door open and the door swings open fairly easily. It's a pretty heavy door, so you have to give it a good push, but you're a fairly strong warrior poet. So once it is pushed open, nothing happens and you're able to kind of look through. You see a large chamber, and this chamber has a pool of water on the opposite side from the door. It's a stone chamber with kind of a purplish hue to the stone. There is treasure right near the edge of the water, and a long, winding staircase that leads to an exit that leads out of the dungeon through the other side of the mountain.
Is the staircase going up or down?
The staircase is going up and it curves in the middle.
And it's across the water?
No, it is. So the water fills about half of this chamber. But it is on the side that the dry land is on. So you would have to walk along the water to get to it, but not across the water. But not
through the water.
And there is a pile of treasure near the water. And within that treasure, you see a cloak, a sword, a scroll, and a large gem, and then some coins.
And we went through a bit of peril, like moderate amount of peril, very much peril so far on this adventure.
Yeah, I mean, you only fight you've had is with those orcs and goblins, and everything else you've just been exploring and avoiding traps, and all the normal dungeon delving stuff that you are now getting used to as new adventurers. But now you see a pile of treasure near a body of water in a purple cavern. The water has a unnatural green hue to it.
I will call to Hilda. Hilda, I'm trying to be as quiet as I can, but still make it audible.
Mm-hmm.
Hilda,
what? What'd you find?
Psst, he's nodding his head towards the room on the other side. Psst.
I'll leave the rancid pickle buckets and go see what's going on.
All right, and you see the same thing. There is a pile of treasure near an unnatural green body of water in a large chamber with odd purple stonework. Not bright purple, not phosphorant. It's not glowing. It's not providing you light, but there's just a weird hue to the stone and a weird hue to the water. And there is a winding staircase leading up and out of the dungeon. In this pile of treasure is a large gem, some coins that are lying loose, and there is a cloak, a large sword, and a scroll.
Is there a smell in this room?
Give me a smell check. Roll me a d6, and let's see what you smell.
I rolled a 2.
Okay, that'll be a good smell check. You recognize a smell that reminds you of Rockholm lizards, strangely enough.
Hey, Leothward. Do you smell that? It smells just like those Rockholm lizards.
Oh, those were those disgusting creatures that kicked me and got my cloak dirty.
Yeah, those.
Do I, in fact, smell that, Carl?
Give me a d6 roll.
I rolled a 1.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that does smell somewhat reptilian.
Interesting. You know what I would like to do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this will work, but do I? Well, let me ask first. Do I know that Rockholm lizards probably wouldn't be here since we're not in Rockholm?
Yeah, there's no way it's Rockholm lizards. You both know that there's no way it's Rockholm lizards.
It could be something far more sinister, Leothward says. I'm going to pull out my lyre and start strumming a chord. And I'm going to cast a sleep spell into the room.
Okay. Roll 2d8.
12.
Whoa. What? Okay. You have cast a sleep spell in the room. You have strummed on your lyre. What do you do now?
The sleep spell is a lullaby. That's what the song is.
Got it. Can you hit me with that lullaby?
Rockabye monsters in the dark room. Please do not kill me. We will leave soon.
That's awesome. That's just...
Give us your treasure. We'll take it all.
And
Rockabye
down will come monsters hiding up walls.
The room seems fairly still. Nothing's changed, really. But you've played a song, and you've cast a spell.
I think the coast is clear.
Can I...
After you.
Can I...
I've got your back.
I take my 10-foot pole, and I kind of nudge around at the pile of treasure.
Sure. So you got to get at least within 10 feet of it.
I'm going to draw my two-handed sword.
Okay. So, Leothward and Hilda both approach close enough to utilize a 10-foot pole. Leothward has his sword drawn. Hilda is currently holding the 10-foot pole and so has no weapon drawn. But can draw it pretty fast. Now, you reach forward with the 10-foot pole and poke at the treasure. As soon as you do, the water begins to stir, bubble, and move. And a large, green, thinned serpent raises from the water. Leothward is aware that he cast a sleep spell. He's aware that it felt powerful and good. So he is aware that this creature is too powerful to be put to sleep. What do you do? What do you do? There's a pile of treasure in front of you. There's an exit up a winding stair to the north. To the east of you, right on the other side of that pile of treasure, is a large, thinned serpent. Dragon-like in appearance, though you don't believe it to be exactly a dragon. It looks a little bit like an expressionist dragon.
Do we run?
That is certainly an option.
In my surprise, Leothward shouts, "By the immortals!" and then reaches to his hip, draws his dagger, and throws it at the dragon.
Okay.
Creature.
Okay. Roll a d20.
I got a 6.
Okay.
So I hit AC nothing.
I understand. The dagger hits the creature and ineffectively slides off of its green, slimy skin and into the green pool of water.
I'll shoot an arrow at it.
Okay.
I drop my 10-foot pole and grab my crossbow and draw it, and I rolled an 8.
So you drop your 10-foot pole where it lands and pull out your crossbow to take a shot, and you also hit the creature, and also it ineffectively hits its green hide and slides down into the water. The crossbow bolt as well as the dagger are now in the water. The creature starts to vibrate and hiss, and it shoots you both with a breath weapon. I'll need a saving throw from both of you. So you'll both need to roll a d20.
All right. I got a 4.
I got a 10.
That's unfortunate.
Is it too late to run?
It shoots a strange mist of boiling hot vapor at you, like it was like you were standing over a boiling pot. So this critter, whatever it is, dragon-like in appearance, has attacked you with a boiling hot mist, and you each take 5 damage.
Oh no.
Leothward, I'm going. Let's get out of here.
I'm right behind you.
So, Hilda and Leothward, after ineffectively attacking this beast, whatever it may be, and being successfully attacked by some sort of strange boiling mist, decide it's not worth the fight and run up the stairs as fast as they can, and the creature starts pulling itself out of the water. Its serpentine body is mobilized only by 2 small legs, and as it pulls towards you, you are climbing up the stairs, and as it pulls towards you, I want you both to give me a dexterity roll. You're trying to get out of here before this thing can close in on you. You're trying to roll lower than your dexterity, or equal to.
I rolled a 2.
I rolled a 6.
All right, so the thing snaps at your heels, but you're able to get out of the precarious dungeon before it gets to you. And unfortunately, you weren't able to grab any of the treasure. And Hilda, you have lost your 10-foot pole. And having not observed the room of the orcs and goblins, there may be treasure there as well. But for the now, it is behind you, and you are in the out and open and ready to travel into Karamikos and seek more adventure. And that's it. That's it for today. Join us next week as we have more adventure with Hilda and Leothward. Well, unfortunately for Hilda and Leothward, they did not gain any treasure, and they unfortunately lost some of their equipment. Their first adventure was not very successful, but join us next time and see what happens to our heroes on their next foray into Moxstara.
The Save or Die podcast is a production of Wild Games Production, and it's produced for entertainment purposes only. The music used in the intro and outro is by Tripod and used with permission. Be sure to visit the Save or Die crew at saveordie.info for more information. If you'd like to support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/WGP.
Laugh at me, that's nothing.